Okay, so it's been a long, hard day. I ended up thinking about something I heard a while back. I don't remember who the guy was, and I don't know if he was a Holocaust survivor or if he spoke about this afterwards. Years and years later, if he was a commenter. But either way, there was some man who he did research into the Nazis and um, their nature. He was trying to figure out why, how could this ever happen, right? How could any, group of human beings do this? And he said he expected to find people, and especially when we're talking about the more prominent Nazis, right? Like Mengele and, Goebbels and whatever. He said he expected to find absolute monsters who were abnormally cruel, right? Who had tendencies toward evil that went past, just common people. But that's not what he found. That's not what he found. He said that instead, what he found among many of the Nazis, even the cruelest, he found ordinary people. He found ordinary people who were capable of committing extraordinarily horrific crimes against humanity. Those of us who are targets of organized stalking know that nothing has changed. Now, granted, this time we don't know what group is behind this. It could be anybody. Um, it could be anybody. But the nature of the psychopaths who take such great pleasure in tormenting others so severely, their nature has not changed. Now it's more covert, yes, right? The Holocaust was ended because some brilliant and brave journalist or reporter snuck into the death camps and filmed what was happening, took pictures of what was happening. And all over the news, all over the world, there were pictures of these corpses, piled up, sky high. And the world was shocked and outraged, and so the world ended the Holocaust. Well, now whoever is doing this learned from that, right? Whoever is targeting us now learned from that. And they're doing this more covertly, right? If people die, they die behind closed doors. If people suffer, they suffer behind closed doors. When the targets break down, if the target should break down and start screaming in public, that's used to demonize the target. See, we told you he was mentally ill. See, we told you she was crazy. See, we told you he was potentially violent. Zersetzung. That's what this is. It is Zersetzung. And it is the worst crime to have ever been committed against humanity. It destroys a person on every level, body, mind, and soul. And, if you consider the surveillance, this isn't legitimate surveillance because the psychopaths want us to know that we're being surveilled. But it's more than that. They want us to know that we're being watched in private. When they have people make comments about things we said or did in private, especially things we did, in the bathroom, they want us to know we're being watched in private, even in the bathroom. Now, that's going to be hard for anybody. Okay, it takes away the one place you have where you can be safe. Imagine some soldiers in war, and they're just out in the open, and they have the shells are coming in, the bombs are coming in, and they have nowhere to hide. Right? There aren't any foxholes. They're just out there and exposed. At some point, they're just going to start running out around crazy. They're going to go crazy. There's psychological comfort in having some place to take shelter just for a little while, and the psychopaths are depriving us of that. And it's intentional. Again, it's part of the psychological warfare. They're going to attack us on every level, whatever will break us down the most. And then of course there's the notion of of being watched, especially for those of us who, for people who are really uncomfortable with their body and have always been. Imagine how much extra brutal that's going to be. Especially for people who have been sexually assaulted. Imagine what they must be going through, knowing that these filthy, sick, psychopathic animals and human flesh are watching them, even naked, and probably mocking them, and kind of makes a person want to just claw out of their skin. We can't protect ourselves. We can't protect our family. It's meant to drive a target to the breaking point. Right? This isn't legitimate surveillance. It's an attempt to provoke the target to the point where the target finally responds negatively and either ends up institutionalized, arrested, or dead. And of course, discredited no matter what. Okay, this is a setup. It's entrapment. It's population control. And there have always been people willing to do this kind of thing. Is there a group of powerful elites controlling all of this? Of course, probably. I won't pretend to know who they are, although I have my ideas. I'm not going to say it. Not in here anyway. I don't want to alienate anyone on this blog because I know there are people from every group, including that group, who are being targeted. I don't really know who's doing it, but their nature is the same as it's always been. They're hunting, they're stalking, they're tormenting, they're conquering innocent people, men, women, children, and even those who are no longer innocent. They started out innocent, but they were driven to the breaking point. They were driven to complete emotional, psychological, even physical collapse. Their nature is the same. Even though there is most certainly some powerful group controlling everything and manipulating everything, the masses go along with this. And that's no different than it's ever been, all right? Consider what happened during MK Ultra and all of the sub-projects under MK Ultra. The population in general went along with it. There were, what was it, over 180 hospitals and universities and businesses and other organizations across America and Canada that went along with it. And it is true that not everybody who went along with it knew that they were involved in something horrible, right? There must have been, secretaries and orderlies and, things like that who wrote up documents and gave messages, but weren't ever informed of what they were involved in. But there were doctors who misled their patients, who lied to their patients, who during the Tuskegee syphilis experiments, the doctors were told not to treat their patients, right? Because why? Because the experimenters at the CIA, right, the CIA doctors, they wanted to see how the disease progressed, and they couldn't do that if the patients were treated. So they told doctors, hey, just tell your patients they're fine. And the doctors willingly did that, knowing that the patients were dying. Okay? Same with the radiation experiments. Men and women, including pregnant women, were injected with radiation. And, a lot of them miscarried. Some of them, they had stillborns, or the infant died a few months later. This is just the beginning. Horrible things. But ordinary people went along with it. There were plenty of people who knew they were involved in something horrible, and they went along with it. And the reason they went along with it is because when they're told by a powerful authority figure that this is perfectly fine, they're going to think it's perfectly fine. They're going to accept it, especially if everybody around them accepts it. It takes an exceptionally special person, an exceptionally wise, independent individual to be able to see past herd mentality. And also someone brave enough to stand against the dominant authority in order to just wake up and realize that even though everybody around you is doing this, that doesn't make it okay. But that's not happening, is it? Because Zersetzung, what we nowadays call organized stalking, it still exists. And just as it was, back when the Stasi was doing it, what did the Stasi do back in East Germany? They attacked anyone who was against communism. They attacked anti-communists, and they drove them crazy. They attacked us in the same way. They attacked them in the same way that targets are being attacked now. Targets of organized stalking. Right? They followed them around. They went into their homes and left a window open. That's happened to me too. They moved things around. They did these crazy things that were, when you report it, you sound crazy. And of course, they had their targets then deemed mentally ill and institutionalized and thus discredited that way. And that's happening again now. But average citizens are going along with it, aren't they? They know. I mean, how stupid does someone have to be if someone says, hey, I'm being followed around and people are being told to make comments and do all these things and say all these things, and then someone says, oh, you're mentally ill for thinking that, but the person has been involved in it. They know it's true because they've done it. How stupid does someone have to be to not put two and two together? But again, yes, there are some people who are that stupid. But, a lot of it is just they don't want to admit to themselves what they're involved in. And so they lie to themselves in order to justify themselves. Right? They lie to themselves in order to justify what they've done, what they are doing, and what they plan on continuing to do. partially because they're too cowardly to stop. They're too afraid. They're not going to be real heroes. They're not going to be real heroes. They're not going to stand against the real threat. They're too cowardly for that. So they're going to continue bending over for the real threat, joining with a massive group to hunt, stalk, and torment lone, easy targets who they don't believe will ever be able to fight back. Okay, they get all the thrill of the hunt with no real risk to themselves. They're not real heroes. They've never been. The real hero, the real superhero, will stand against the real threat instead of bending over for it, even if he or she has to stand alone. We need real heroes. We need real superheroes in this world, okay? You don't have to be Batman, Superman, forget Batman. You don't have to be Superman. You don't have to be, a comic book character. You don't have to have physical superpowers to be a real superhero. Okay, if you stand against the real threat, even if all you can do is blog online, if you stand up against the real threat, you're a superhero. If you stand up for justice, for the weak, for those who were being unjustly persecuted and harmed, and for those who aren't allowed a defense, you're a superhero. Yes, it's hard. It's hard, of course it is, but that's part of being a superhero. You do what's hard. It isn't hard to join in with the real threat and attack, join in a massive group to attack a lone target who can't fight back. That's not hard. It's not hard to go online trolling the easiest targets possible, right? Leaving nasty, hateful comments to people who are already easy targets. That's pathetic. It's cowardly. It's not hard. Hard is standing against them because we know what happens. Hard is standing up against the C.I.A team, the Zersetzung team, the organized stalkers. Yeah, we need real superheroes in this world. Men, women, it doesn't matter. We need brave, strong men and women to stand up against the real threat instead of helping the real threat destroy innocent targets. And when I say innocent, by the end of this type of targeting, nobody is going to look innocent, and probably nobody's going to be innocent, but they started out innocent. Everybody did at one point. This is meant to destroy people on every level, and it does. Don't be an ordinary person. Be extraordinary. Please, be a superhero. Okay, right, so it's a few minutes later, maybe 15 minutes later. I'm going to add this to the video. This is going to be a second video that I just add to the first one. So they just had someone come up and hand us something, and the guy, I could tell by his accent and some other things, I'm not going to say what group he was from, but he's white, and again, I could tell by his accent he's from the specific group that I had been wondering, I had been contemplating, could they be doing this? Because I always go back and forth. It could be this group, but no, what? Why would our own government allow a foreign government to do this to us, right? Our own government would have to be doing it. I just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Well, today I was doing that, and I was doing that for a long time, and I was very upset, and I almost banging the walls. I was going a little nuts, and so they just had someone come up from that very, very specific group and bring us something. Now, I've never seen... Someone from that group has never come up here before, They do bring meals twice a day for my mom, but it's always, it's different people, it's different, whatever, but never from that group. So because I had been going on and on and on about that particular group today and wondering could they be behind this, they sent someone up from that group. And it's just to bait me. It's just to bait me even more. This in-your-face baiting bullshit. But here's the thing. He could be totally, completely innocent. This poor guy they might be trying to set him up, right? They might be using him. He might even be wondering, hey, why did those people tell me to go up and bring this to this apartment, right? He might have no clue why he was told to do that. So I'm not suggesting that he's guilty or that he has anything to do with it. They could be using him too. So this is just how they work. This is just how they operate. Anyway, that's it, I think.